Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Erev Shabbos, Parshas Shlach, Erev Shabbos, Parshas Korach, Shlach in America, Korach here in Eretz Yisrael. You have to wonder how am I going to tie those two parshas into each other? The end of Parshas Shlach is the mitzvah of tzitzis, and the beginning of Parshas Korach is the story of Korach. On the most simple level, also involved tzitzis. One of the arguments that Korach had against Moshe was he asked him a very simple question. He says, we know that tchelis is a mitzvah in tzitzis, and you have to affix tchelis to the tzitzis, the blue strand. He says, what about a garment that's completely made of tchelis, completely made of blue? Does that require the tchelis and the tzitzis? So Moshe Rabbeinu said, of course. It's two separate things. As Korach says, a whole garment is made of tchelis, and you need to have a special strand of tchelis in the tzitzis. Doesn't make sense. Moshe Rabbeinu, nothing you say makes sense. Everything you say is really arbitrary. It's stuff you made up. And that was the basis of the rebellion of Korach against Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what it seems on the surface. Nice connection between the two parshios. But I think it's much, much deeper. And I think there's a powerful message here. Last week's parsha talked about the Meraglim. This week's parsha in America talks about the Meraglim, talks about the spies. Then we have the prohibition against idolatry. Then we have the Mekoshesh Eitzim, the guy who gathers wood on Shabbos, Slafchod, according to the Gemara, and that he gathered wood on Shabbos from Mechal Shabbos, and they took him outside and they killed him, they stoned him. And then the parsha of tzitzis, of the mitzvah of wearing tzitzis. And you have to wonder what the connection is between them. You also have to wonder that we know that the Mekoshesh really took place long before the story of the spies. And yet it's recorded totally not in its place, but it's recorded after the story of the spies. You also have to wonder that Rashi says that by the Mekoshesh, which was a very, very big deal. So Rashi says it's really a description of the gnus, of the degradation of the Jewish people. Lo shomer l'Shabbos Rishona, that we only kept the first Shabbos that we were commanded in Mara. Ubishniya, and the second one, Bozeh. This guy came along and he was Mechal Shabbos. And therefore this is really speaking to the negativity, to the downside of the Jewish people. What's the big deal? It's one guy. Wasn't all of Klal Yisrael. Nobody agreed with him. They ended up taking him outside and killing him. He wasn't a chaytum machti. It wasn't like he caused other people to desecrate. There was no din arvus yet, so you can't say Kol Yisrael Ravin Zelazeh, that they were really fully aware of that. So like, what's going on here? What's the problem? So I think that we have to look at another Rashi. The Rashi says that why is the Mekoshesh Eitzim, the story of the gatherer of wood, why was it taken away from its place that it belonged and put over here? Because it was put next to the prohibition against idolatry. To tell me that anybody that's Mechal Shabbos is Kilu Avodah Zarah. That if you desecrate the Sabbath, it's considered as if you have worshipped idols. So you have to ask the question, like, what's the connection between the two of them? The desecration of Shabbos, desecration of Shabbos. I could believe in God, but I was desecrating Shabbos. How is that tantamount to the serving of idols? So we have to understand that Shabbos is an ois, it's a sign between God and the Jewish people of our connection. Our connection is a connection to the Creator. And it's a reminder of the fact that God has created the world and that we live in the world of the Creator. And that when things are happening to us, we remember there's a Creator of this world. When we're looking for a focus in life, we're looking for a goal in life, we're looking for a direction in life, we have to remember that God is our Creator. When a person desecrates Shabbos, what they're saying is that God is not sure God's the Creator. He's not living with that sense of God as being the Creator in the middle of his life. And that's tantamount to serving idols, to being Ovid Avodah Zarah, because that's also a statement that God is not the creator and God is not the center of my life. And that's why we say that Shabbos is shkula. It's equal to all the commandments. Because that's the purpose of all the commandments. The purpose of all the mitzvahs that we have is to remind us, constantly remind us, we're living in God's world, to keep us and to keep focused on the big picture. And that's why God gives the remedy to all this. The way to fix this is through the mitzvah of tzitzis. Through Yisam, I say. And you will remember all of my mitzvahs. You'll look at the blue strand and you'll remember in that blue strand in the tzitzis, not in the garment, but in the tzitzis, you'll remember that there is a sea. You'll remember that there is a sky, and you'll remember that there is a God in that sky, that there is a kisei hakavod, that there is a throne there. You'll remember the big picture, that we're living in a Kadosh Baruch Hu's world, and that He is our Creator. He is our God. He is our protector, and He has expectations of us. Shivisi Hashem lenegdi samid. I put God before me at all times and in all moments. And that's the run of the different parshios, the different sections in Parshas Shlach. And then that leads into the story of Korach. Because when you lose sight of the big picture, then everything collapses. When you're not operating in God's world anymore, then everything falls apart. And that's why Korach's rebellion was centered around the mitzvah of tzitzis. Because the mitzvah of tzitzis is shkula, it's equal to all the other mitzvahs in the Torah, because it is a reminder, a constant reminder that we walk around with, that we're living in God's world. Shivisi Hashem lenegdi samid. And that's exactly what Korach was calling into question. Korach was trying to tamper with that fundamental. And that's when we fall apart. That's when Klal Yisrael has no hope. When we don't remember whose world we're living in. And these two parshas are here to remind us that constantly our eyes have to be looking up to heaven. We have to remember what we're doing here. We have to remember what our purpose is. We have to constantly be reminded of where and why we exist here. And we remember that, so then we can achieve greatness. That's why Parshas Korach comes right after Parshas Shlach, so that we understand with our eyes. It gets played out to us. What was the Meraglim's chet? What was their sin? They lost sight of the big picture. How do you remedy that? You remedy that with the mitzvah of tzitzis. And the Torah shows me from the story of the Mekoshesh what happens when you lose sight. When one person loses sight, then all of Klal Yisrael can lose sight. The Mekoshesh was some nondescript little fellow. But that was an indication that this was a rot that existed in Klal Yisrael. No, they weren't influenced by it. No, he wasn't machti them. He didn't make them sin. He didn't influence them. He didn't drag them down. But he was an indication of what was going on in Klal Yisrael. And when did it manifest itself? In the time of Korach. It manifested itself in all of those that joined his rebellion. Because what they were rebelling against was that God lives in the center of our lives, and that God dictates every moment and every direction, every decision that we make. Being mechazik ourselves in that emunah, in that faith, in that understanding, that's our critical avodah. That's what protects us. That's what gives us the hope to keep on going. That's what allows us to be able to rise and to achieve greatness. Those are the two parshas next to each other. Parshas Shlach in America, Parshas Korach in Eretz Yisrael. This Shabbos, we're all talking about strengthening our emunah, and may it in fact be so. With our chizuk in emunah, we cannot be zoichet to things, but we could be zoichet to realizing that a Kodesh Baruch Hu is there in the center. And if you just open your eyes, you'll see it, you'll understand it, and you'll be able to feel it in every moment of your existence. Have a beautiful Shabbos.